Hello, in this video I just want to go through a few ideas about oppositions in the wheel. That's if my dog will allow me to, but anyway, oppositions in the wheel and the things that kind of I sort of see helping them in, especially in things like relationships. So the sort of thing we mean by oppositions here are the conflicts that occur most strongly when things are not in virtue. And it's very easy to see how these things would occur, like for instance between the nymph or child and the warrior. Yeah, they are opposing genders, yeah, feminine, masculine as the archetypal forms, and you can see that this is fire first, water first, this is air second, this is earth second. Everything is a polarity in that sense. By polarity I mean in the sense, for instance, that water polarizes with fire. They're attracted towards each other, they want each other, they need each other, but they are on totally different bases, and the same with earth and air. So for instance, so it's like between nymph child and warrior, or between say the matriarch and the fool, the actress and the sage, the hearth priestess or queen and the patriarch. These are very, very oppositional, if you see what I mean. And we would probably say between the magician and Mother Nature, and between the jester and the enchantress, though as we said in another video, we can also, for instance, posit that there would be a similar opposition between enchantress and magician, and between Mother Nature and jester, though it does seem to me that there is a kind of there is this fundamental thing between water and fire, and between earth and air, which is what analogues seem to pick up on. So what would help with that? Well, I think the thing that helps most clearly and most simply in terms of the quadrant archetypes, yeah, what helps most clearly is things that in our discussions we've referred to as the polarities. And by polarities, what we mean is, for instance, nymph child to hearth priestess queen, warrior to patriarch, sage to fool, actress to matriarch. These sorts of combinations work very well with each other. They're very supportive of each other. Yeah. So, and you'll see they together they make up all of the elements, but what's very different is that they're same sex polarities, and you'll see that this is earth first with water first. Earth and water very good for each other, whereas with the warrior it was fire with water. Whole different ball game, really, far more challenging. Yeah, same way with matriarch. You see again, matriarch and actress, between them they've got all of the elements. Yeah, they've got all of the elements, but this is water first, this is earth first. Again, earth and water really, really good for each other. Yeah, and whereas if you go over to here to the sage, the actress has got water first, and this has got air first. So there's that air. There's an air-water conflict there. You see, there's an air-water conflict. It's more of a challenge. So yes, we see these sorts of things occurring. So what that suggests to me is that, I mean, dealing with the quadrant archetypes anyway, if, for instance, you had a conflict between hearth priestess, queen, and patriarch, yeah, say they're in a relationship, yeah, and they're not seeing each other's way of doing things at all, yeah, they're not acting in virtue, yeah, they're not in virtue, and they're having problems, yeah. So the hearth priestess is not going to get the patriarch's world. The patriarch is not going to get the hearth priestess's world. Yeah. But now you see, if the hearth priestess is actually in good relationship with the nymph or child. So this actually gives you a kind of like a more complete, more rounded combination. Then you see there's an immediate way in. Yeah, there's an immediate way to understand better, because the patriarch and the nymph, they can get on. Yeah. Similarly, now if the patriarch has a good amount of warrior working as well, so that his character is more rounded. Yeah. Again, half priestess, warrior, they can get on very well. Yeah. I mean, they're the same elements. You just flip them over. So you'll see, that's definitely one thing that occurs to me. Yeah. So, for instance, wherever you look on this, if you've got, say, if the polarity is brought in to the characters, then they can then their conflicts are resolved much more easily, and I think that's probably a key to a few things there. That's probably a key to a few things there. Now, in terms of the cardinals, yeah, in terms of the cardinals, uh, that's a different ball game, yeah. Now, and for that, what are we going to look at? Well, now, let's say if we do magician, Mother Nature, yeah. There, that was my dog. We do a magician, Mother Nature. Now we've got a bit of a conflict. We might have a conflict there with how they see things. Yeah. Now, what's going to help them out? Now, the polarity, that we were talking about with the quadrants isn't going to work, because look, this is like, yeah, that does him good, but it doesn't give him any insight into her. This does her good, doesn't give him any insight into him. So I think the answer there is no, that's not going to work. But what I can see does work is, for instance, if the magician, yeah, what will help is if the magician, say, can develop more patriarch, yeah, that's the triad of Mother Nature. So that works, yeah, that works there. That's going to work quite nicely, yeah. And if Mother Nature, develops more Queen or Hearth Priestess, that works with the Magician's triad. Yeah. Similarly, actually, if you develop, if the cardinals move their energy out into their adjacent archetypes, the quadrant archetypes, you'll immediately get things getting better, I think, because even if the magician goes over into the sage, well, it brings in some earth there, yeah, albeit as a secondary element, and so there's a bit more of a harmony going on there. Similarly, with Mother Nature going over to matriarch, it brings in a bit more air. There is more capacity for understanding, I think. But what it seems to me is is that the best thing, it would occur to me, is that for the cardinals to move into the adjacent quadrant archetype that they actually sort of rule over or give energy to. But it would be the quadrant archetype which is part of the triad of the cardinal that they're in conflict with. So that's what I am thinking there. Just some ideas there, and I am mainly thinking in terms of relationships here. That's what's really interesting me here. It's in terms of relationships. So that's my thoughts for today. This is just a little further illustration of some of the principles that I'm seeing here, and just what I can imagine with it. Yeah. Now let's say we'll use the conflict, say, between the warrior and the nymph or child or angel. Let's say these two people are in a relationship, yeah, and they have a problem, yeah. They can't see each other's way. They've got like real difficulty. The warrior is really kind of like frustrated with the nymph's wetness and sensitivity and oversensitivity, and the nymph is just like really hurt and tired by the warrior's apparently imperviousness to feeling and emotion, and the fact that they want to just they think you should just be able to will your way through life or what have you, and so they're in a bit of a problem. They're a bit of a standoff. And what helps with that? Well, look, if the nymph also has the hearth priestess or queen here, yeah, which used to be called the slave originally in Tammuz system, then she starts to get much more of a kind of like, she gets much more of an earthy quality to her, which can cope with things, which can just accept things, take things. Warrior's in a bit of a state, whatever, and not only can you see the warrior's energy, which is very, very, very aggressive. Hearth priestess can cope with that. She can take that, yeah, and she can actually kind of soothe it really by absorbing it, yeah. And so that having more of this, it gives the nymph more body, and it gives her a little bit of underlying fire, yeah, so she can just relax and accept it and not be so timid and sensitive, yeah. Now the warrior, on the other hand, if the warrior has more patriarch, well, the patriarch brings in principles, brings in a sense of honor, brings in a sense of limitations, so that the warrior then starts to regulate his own aggressiveness, his own will, because he has a higher purpose to devote it to and to guide it. So then he will be more likely to actually protect the nymph angel rather than get annoyed with her. Another one, let's look at, say, the actress and the sage. These two are in a relationship, yeah? Now, the actress she has great feeling, great passion. She needs that feeling recognized. And the sage is like, isn't really affected by it. He's not her audience, basically. Similarly, the sage wants peace, serenity, doesn't see the problem with things. And then you've got the drama of the actress, and the response of the sage to the drama of the actress is to say, I'm just going to go out for a walk, I'm just going to go to my room, I'm just going to read this book here that I need to study, see you later. And the actress gets really, really annoyed and angry and starts raging, and all that sort of stuff. He doesn't care. She wants him to care and he doesn't, and etc., etc. Now, what helps that? Well, if you bring more of the matriarch into the actress, it kind of, again, it brings some earth in. It gives her more organization. It gives her more grounding to all her feelings. So then she, for instance, has things to work on. So she gets more independent in her feelings, I think, somehow. Yeah, she gets more independent in her feelings. Yeah, and not quite as needing involvement. Meanwhile, the sage, if you bring in the full, it brings in a bit more life. Yeah, it brings in more life then. It brings in more play, and the actress can relate to that more then. So then they both start to relate to each other better. Let's have a look at a cardinal now. Just take one of the cardinals, two of the cardinals in conflict, Enchantress, and here we have the Jester. They're in a relationship. What's their problem? Well, Jester is way above feelings and likes it that way, and she's really in her feelings and she needs it that way. The Jester likes things to laugh at things. She doesn't see what's funny. In fact, she thinks that's really quite hurtful, So they're kind of like they're not getting on. They're really not getting on. Their worlds are very far apart. So what's going to help that? Well, let's see. If the enchantress moves more over towards the nymph or angel or child, which is part of the jester's triad, yeah, then she becomes a bit lighter. She gets some air in there, and she becomes more playful. Jester and child get on really very well. They can play. You see, the jester is above all that deep feeling, and the child is kind of like, well, she's kind of above it too. Not because she's cut off from feeling, but because but this is really rather adult stuff here, you see, and she is in that beautiful world where it's not touched by those things. So they get on very well. So that lightens up the enchantress, and that makes it much easier for the jester to then relate to her, yeah, and for her to relate to the jester. Meanwhile, the jester, if we then shift him more over to the warrior, which is in the enchantress's triad, there's the full triad. So that's in the enchantress's triad. Well, move the jester more over towards the warrior, it gives him more body, yeah? It gives him more body. She can relate to that because she's got Earth Second as well, yeah? It gives him more body. It also, it just makes him more instinctively attractive somehow, and that she understands that, yeah? So the jester then becomes more earthed, more grounded, and more instinctive, and that gives him a way of empathizing at an instinctual level rather than an emotional level with the enchantress, so that they can actually come together and work things out, yeah? She finds it easier to be with him, he finds it easier to be with her. Anyway, that's just a little illustration of a few different combinations and how that pattern could work out to make things a little bit easier.